So starting this right off, Cloud is going to say and remind you, the listener, that you are not the body. You are briefly inhabiting this body and you have to use it appropriately. So with that said, we're going to give you useful information so that you can pinpoint what another entity needs to improve in regards to their behavior, and you can help them with that so that they can become conscious enough to realize they are not the body, and they can actually have their body become the character that they desire for the right reasons so that they can improve their respective communities. That's what we're talking about here. It's not just so that you can capitalize and go into these fields unconsciously. No, we're going to give you some factual information that will definitely help you along your journey. So let's begin. And Cloudy is a tad drowsy, so do keep that in mind as we go through this. Don't let the drowsiness transition into you. But nonetheless, let's proceed. It's important to remember that the human brain does not stop fully developing until the age of 25. That's not to mention all the traumatic stuff that has been purposely engineered into communities. In this lesson, we'll be talking about the complex system of chemicals, cells, and organs all inside of the body you inhabit. And you'll have to draw conclusions as to how certain aspects in society are causing you or someone you know to potentially be self-destructive. Who creates the corrupt content? And how does that interconnect with those corrupt corporates? See, those corporates can be noticed by what they create, and that is destruction. So think destruction of the outer world and also the inner world in you, who dwells in a carbon body. Your vibrational being temporarily inhabiting that carbon body that can be hijacked if you're naive enough to not question the information you're given. So the nervous system is a network of cells that carries information. If you do not know, water stores information. Your thoughts are energies that come from the sun. You're a percent of the sun. That's why the word is person. You have to research the etymological roots of words. You're not going to get this off Google. Google hasn't been around long enough to teach you what you should know. So the network of cells carries information to all points in your body. Imagine there being dial posts, where a light flickers when information is taken from one point to the other. It flows. Neuroscience has to be remembered like this. It deals with the structure of the brain, neurons, nerves, and nervous tissues, and how they all function. Simply break it down into those subcategories. The other side of biological psychology is behavioral neuroscience. That's the main area that deals with biological perspective that is being discussed in this video talk. There are many cells in the body. Each serves a unique purpose, similar to how humans each serve a different purpose and function, but add to the well-being of the realm they're in. As above, so below, as some say. Skin cells are flat, while muscle cells are long and stretchy. Take a look at this diagram. Most cells have these factors in common: a nucleus, cell body, and the cell membrane that holds it all together. A neuron is an important cell in the nervous system whose responsibility is to receive and send messages within that system. So imagine a neuron as an important ambassador that relays information between countries. The neuron is one ambassador who sends information throughout the body, and thus they have an important structure that you can look into. That being the basics of how the brain works, starting with neurons. So there are parts to the neuron. The first part we'll talk about are dendrites.
Ask the question why. Why are trees shaped the same way as dendrites? As above, so below. We have to again remind you, the viewer, of that. The reason the similarity was called dendrite is because it means tree-like or branch. So it's no coincidence. I have to stress that. Take a moment to process this. I repeat, it's not a coincidence. A dendrite is attached to the cell body. So a tree is attached to the solar waves you don't see with the physical eyes, but do in fact sense. You can learn to talk to trees if you stimulate your brain enough, but that's not something you're going to easily get off Google for obvious reasons that Cloudy is not going to mention due to the platform we're on. If this were 2015, maybe, but this is 2020, and we're currently going through the age of Aquarius, age of information, improving the inner form of this realm. And it starts with who? With you, the viewer. That's why Cloudy dedicates this moment for this to definitely help incoming lovelies. So take dendrites, and remember, dendrites are attached to the cell body. Look at the diagram. The cell body is like Earth's ground. The trees are attached to Earth's ground. Going deeper into the cell body, you have the soma, which keeps the entire cell alive. The word soma itself means body. The word axon comes from the Greek word axis, and that's no coincidence. So do note, we're going to the psychology of a specific subgroup when we're running through this information. You have to wipe away the biased shit from your eyes in order to see clearly beyond all subgroups. So we have to see the good components and the corrupt components, and we have to remain on the righteous path. So the axon itself is a fiber connected to the soma and carries messages to other cells. Imagine fiber, F-I-B-E-R, as Fiverr, F-I-V-E-R-R, the app, sending messages out to those who can do the right jobs. The axon is connected to the soma. The end of the axon branches into smaller fibers, and they look like little knobs at the end called axon terminals. Check the diagram. The axon terminals is also called terminal buttons / synaptic knobs that are given the responsibility of communicating with other nerve cells. Neurons contribute to a huge part of the brain. They make up most of the brain, so just remember that. Neurons contribute to most of the brain, but that doesn't mean that they control the thinking, learning, memory, perception, etc. that contribute to life and functionality of the body you're in. So the other primary cells in the brain are called glial cells. Now this may look overwhelming to some, but take an easy breath and break down each one. So look into the specific cell names. Take your time, don't rush. You have to do those reps and stay focused. It's through concentration that you evolve. And some of you lovelies out there may not have someone to give you that reminder, so Cloudy is dedicating this moment to give you that. Use it. Evolve to your more powerful self. Glial cells can be looked at as this. There are different kinds of glials. Imagine a glial is a person, and some glials serve as the function. The glue that keeps neurons to the structure where the neurons develop and work, that holds the neuron in place. Here's an example. During the early development of the brain, radial glial cells help guide migrating neurons to form the outer layers of the brain. The other glia are tasked in getting nutrients to the neurons. Another group cleans up the remains of neurons that have expired / died. So think of the 5 different glial cell groups. The other 2, they communicate with other glial cells and make sure there's insulation for neurons. Glial cells will affect the structure of neurons. They will affect the function, along with specific types have properties similar to some cells, and those allow them to develop into new neurons during prenatal development and in adult mammals too. Glial cells also have a potential role in psychiatric disorders. What are those disorders? Major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorder. You can't claim this is stupid when it's all around you. Jobs capitalizing off of the misery and manipulation of others. The past had corrupt capitalizing, where energetic parasites try to turn innocent beings into greedy, selfish parasites, and you see that in the entertainment industry, which entertainment is to distract your mentality. Whether that's through OnlyFans, TikTok, social media, Medea, Goddess of Illusion, distractions, that we're sieging in the age of Aquarius. Superior Siege, shout out to my brand. But you have to keep in mind that the chemicals in your environment will certainly impact your body and thus cause mental illnesses. So there are certain criminal organizations creating the problem that they then pretend to solve by making a capitalizing scheme, also known as drugs and big pharma. Now trace who's behind that, and then you realize how many innocent entities have lost their existence because of the energetic parasites that are now in big trouble and are held responsible by us divines.